Hi, everyone. Welcome to the next episode of Joseph's Fireside Chat series. I'm very excited today to be joined by my friend and collaborator, Hemma Lomax from DocuSign. Hemma, you've got a new title, so I'm going to check it to make sure I don't get it right. But it's Deputy General Counsel, Vice President, Global Head of Ethics and Compliance. Is that right?
I don't know if that's long enough. We should add
I
some
know
words
we should.
so far. That's what I've managed to get in my first 3 weeks. So yeah, let's go with that.
Very good. Hemma, it's so lovely to see you again. It's been too
Likewise.
long. Tell us about the new role. How exciting.
Super exciting. So I just started, I think I'm in week 4, leading the ethics and compliance function at DocuSign. And what a fabulous team, what a fabulous company to be at. They are really at the edge of possibility. And you know me, Sam, this is where I like to operate, right? I like to feel like I'm adding value at the edge of what we've been doing and trying to figure out what the next generation is. And so I've joined this wonderful legal team that's like that, in service of an amazing, product and sales team. So yeah, really fun time to be at the company. You may know them as an e-sign company, but they're so much more now. They're a platform company. Intelligent agreement management is in full force. And so it's amazing to see how we as a legal and compliance team can serve our employees and our business, but they also in turn are serving the industry in the same way to get people where they need to go swiftly and safely. So yeah, very excited, as you can
Are
tell
you
about that.
using DocuSign in the legal function?
Yes, we do try to do what we can to use it. So again, not just the e-signature that people might know, but intelligent agreement management now. So the first thing I did was ask for access to the new IAM platform, so that we can look right now at the agreements we have at DocuSign as a legal function, a compliance function, and mine it for all the fabulous data that's being trapped in there, and start to make better decisions based on that data. So yeah, super excited.
What a gold mine.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, I want to hear about your journey. I want the audience to hear about your journey, in fact. You've worked at the SEC in enforcement. You've worked at companies like Disney and Zendesk and others. Like, tell us about your journey. How did you get here today?
Yeah. Oh gosh, and that's just my US journey. You can probably tell from my accent that I've got a bit of a journey before that too. But yes, I've always been on a quest to figure out why the big bad things happen in the world, and how the people that make the decisions can be helped to make those decisions in the best way possible. And so my journey really does trace that. It's like, who's responsible for this stuff? When I was a kid, it was things like planes falling out of the sky or war. I was like, why is this allowed to happen? And what are the conditions that would create this situation? So with that quest in mind, I've always looked for opportunities to learn more about what makes people tick. And again, back to the decision-making point. So the SEC was a good place to come to when I started my career in the US, because they were prosecuting companies for doing some of the bad stuff. But I will say it's much better to be on the inside, where you're in companies with brands, companies that care, that want to leverage their resources to do responsible business, responsible growth. And so that's why I moved to Disney, then to Snapchat, then to Zendesk. And in each place, I've learned so much. I mean, Disney's the king of storytelling, and that's really important when it comes to influencing people and decision making. Snapchat, social media, this mass at scale influence of people. Zendesk is customer service. So I've really learned a lot about the customer experience and how that can drive decision making and conditions. And then I get to go to DocuSign, where they talk about where the world agrees. So the brands themselves have been a great breeding ground for me to answer some of those questions and ask some of those questions. But all in all, I've really spent a lot of time just looking for ways to understand human behavior and understand how we can help people get where they want to go. Again, swiftly, safely, strategically.
How fascinating. So, because there's sort of this inherent contradiction in a compliance function, isn't there? Like, you're in the company, but you're also trying to steer them in particular directions that may not always exactly align with maximizing profit or whatever other incentives.
Yes.
You and me have spoken quite a bit about building a well-designed compliance program.
Yes.
You've just hinted maybe at some of that, which is a lot of influence and storytelling. Tell us, what is like your ideal compliance program? What does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, I probably wouldn't call it a compliance program, because there's a bit of a stigma attached to the word compliance. People tend to think of compliance as, oh, that annual training, or oh, the police, or oh, the people that are going to get me in trouble.
Yeah.
And look, there is that role in terms of having clear rules, and enforcement is helpful for a company when it has to make decisions. The same way when you're driving on a road to your destination, there are certain rules that will help you make good decisions where you might not be thinking about the risks, but others have thought about that before you. They've learned from the risk intelligence from that journey, and they've been able to give it back to you. But look, compliance can be so much more. I rebranded a function in one of my roles. The function, I called it the Office of Unlock. And the idea there was we're going to unlock responsible growth with the company. So again, instead of that contradiction, this idea of company business wants to go here and make money, and we're thought of as the friction to that, or the Office of No, we need to align the goals. Now, we could spend some time talking about how actually responsible growth makes you more money, but put that to the side for a second, right? So it's not just about the money, it's about getting where I want to go. I'm going to say it a third time, swiftly and safely, right? And so that's where I think compliance comes in. We're not the villain. We're definitely not the hero. We are the guide, right? And so I want to make sure that I am in service of the business. And that is a different conversation. So why have I come to that realization? Again, I talked about influence. You actually can be counterproductive if you come in as the police and the Office of No and the Office of Block, and really you won't be listened to. You'll have zero influence. People will try to find a way to hack you, get around you, and not involve you. If you want true influence, you need to be in service of the common goal. And so I really thought about that, and compliance really can be in service of the common goal. Laws and regulations might be the villain, right? Like there's a lot of them out there. But even I'll just pause there for a second. Like I was at the SEC as a prosecutor, as a government regulator, and their mission was actually aligned with the companies. They wanted, three-part mission: capital formation, healthy functioning markets for
Mhm.
the US public companies, and protecting investors at the same time. Three-part mission. So why not align with that mission? We also want healthy markets. We also want capital formation. Let's do that together. Let's unlock that. And I don't want to go too far into this, but you'll see that once you start to align, then we all work together, not just compliance and the business, legal and the business, but the business and the government will work together because they all want the same thing. So I think just, the art of decision making is having a North Star together and not trying to your point, conflict and have too much friction. So it's that very realization that there's friction that's made me rethink how we approach compliance.
Fascinating. My mind just exploded. It always does when I talk to you.
Yay.
Yeah. And so what is that? I mean, I want to go down the rabbit hole, but just like very quickly, like what does that process look like? Is that like you go and speak to government, you go and speak to all the stakeholders, you find out what their different imperatives are, and then you see where they match up? Like what do you
I mean,
do?
it can be as simple, again, if I think of compliance as a service, or
Mhm.
legal and compliance as a service, now calling it Le Compass, legal and compliance as a service. Um, what we're supposed to be doing is helping people get where they want to go. And so one framework is objective-centered risk management. If we think of
Mhm.
risk as only the other side of the coin of opportunity, objectives that go to opportunities. So when the business sets its objectives for the year, and it could be, for example, this has been the case pretty much everywhere I've worked, global growth, new markets, more sale with the public sector, right? Just that's their goal. They want to increase revenue in those industries, in those verticals.
Mhm.
Then you take your cues from that, right? So it's like, okay, that's your journey. What activities are you going to be involved in to get to that destination? And what vulnerabilities are there along the journey?
Cool.
And then we're here to help. And that gives me focus, my team focus. Okay, let's not just come in with a long risk register of esoteric risks that we like to cover for. No, let's make the risks specific to the opportunity you're going after and the activities you're involved in. That gets you a lot of buy-in, number one, because all of a sudden I'm trying to help you, not some random hindrance on the side, number one. Number two, let's go a bit further. I am not going to be the expert on your journey, right? So then you start to actually work with the business so they can tell you what they see on their roads, right? Then you get even more buy-in because you're co-creating the risk management with the person that you're serving. The same way I love to use, as you've heard me talk about this before, Waze, the GPS navigation system. I talk
Yeah,
about this all the time. It's
yeah.
my favorite analogy because, again, I'll say it a fifth time. Like, we want to help you get to your destination swiftly and safely. What information do we need to give you to get there? But also, who's on the road? Not me, you. So you're going to see things. You're going to see that obstacle on the road. You're going to see that dead end. You're going to see that obstruction, and you can send that back into headquarters. So headquarters can quickly send that to your colleagues who are 5 feet behind you. And so this idea of leveraging the eyes and ears, leveraging the business to learn what really is relevant. So making risk relevant. Look, the biggest complaint is we're irrelevant. Whatever training we put together is at least a year old if we're lucky. And things have moved much faster. We know things are moving much faster. So we want, the best example I can give you is when AI came out. And of course, we were going to talk about AI. The first policies, a lot of them were don't use AI at work.
Yeah.
Well, that wasn't that long ago. That wasn't probably even 12 months ago people were writing those policies. And gosh, that got out of date pretty quickly, right? Now it's like, how could you possibly avoid it? So if things are going to move that fast, we need to keep up and keep pace with you on your specific journey. And so that's one of the ways to do it, is to co-create, get involved, think about opportunity management, and risk is just the other side of the coin. Then we're all in this motion or this movement. I just did another podcast with Amy Wilson called Movements, Not Mandates. Well, I love that. Like, that's another way to redefine legal and compliance. We're not here to do mandates. We're here to do a movement with you. And I can't be there to help you make the decision every time. So I need to facilitate ethical decision making and give you the tools you need to choose whether to take that journey or choose an alternative so you can keep moving forward without, I'm going to say it in a positive way, with ease and peace of mind. That's what I want from my clients.
Cool. I always learn so much from you. And I'm sure it seems so obvious to you, but I do so much work with legal and compliance teams, and just even that simple idea of not starting with the privacy regime or not starting with the SEC, enforcement action. You start with the business activity, you start with the business goal, and then you move your way forward. Anyway, simple but brilliant. You mentioned AI. As you know, I'm a bit of a fan. How does AI, and I know you've used this in definitely your past roles and now apparently in DocuSign as well. Tell me, how does AI and technology fit into I don't want to call it compliance programs, fit into that movement, let's say?
Yes. Oh, I'm going to quote Hamilton the musical, how lucky we are to be alive right now.
Yeah.
Such an exciting
I'm
time.
going to take our shot.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. I'm not giving up my shot.
Yeah.
This is really important. So what I've just said sounds great at a high level. And one of my new team members quite wisely said, yeah, okay, Hemma, so what's the next layer down? How do we implement this? And very wisely, because he knows that the way we've always done things and what the government's told us we should be doing will get in the way operationally of me doing this new cool stuff, right? Unless we leverage AI, to do some of that stuff. Some of the stuff that we think is sensible, but we've got a lot of manpower on these manual tasks, risk assessments, compliance training, policy reading, communications about policy. We're putting 98% of our resources towards this stuff. And so why not leverage AI to get some of that stuff done, automate some of it? Now, that's not a new idea. This is not a 12-month ago idea, but certainly the technology and the products and the platforms are evolving so quickly. You entrepreneurs, you brilliant entrepreneurs, are listening to us when we tell us our pain points. Before I can wow anyone in the business, I want to make sure my team has ease and peace of mind. And a lot of what they're doing is grind. Right? Enter this very affable AI system that's willing to work hard. We can really parse out a lot of that work. Things that we were doing manually, we can now automate. Communications that we were trying to do ad hoc every day. I've got metric reports from some of my companies where I tell the audit committee how many times I'd responded to an input, an inquiry. And that was my pat on the back. It's like, no, if the volume's going up, that's great. People are engaging with us. But we can't slow them down because we haven't got time to respond in time. So our response time is now instant with AI, right? If you, Sam, ask me a question about the policy and there's 500 other drivers behind you asking the same question, well, that's silly. Yes, we used to do FAQs. I know that we had the manual FAQ, but now AI doesn't mind being asked 100 times. It doesn't cost me that much more. So, I could go on and on and on, but there's so many use cases already that are well in place and so many more that we're asking for now. The same way I just mentioned about the GPS navigation system, Waze and then Google have been using that crowdsourcing, having AI analyze the data. So now they can tell you when you're approaching
Yeah.
historically dangerous intersection. How cool is that? We can look around corners. So yes, do the stuff we've always done, but now leverage the data for something much more useful, and make decisions much more quickly. Be proactive instead of reactive. I mean, I don't know. The limits are our imagination, quite frankly.
Mm.
Thank God for, like I said, those brilliant coders, brilliant engineers, people like you that are putting your brains to work to make sure that we can unleash human potential. Really, that's how I see it. We unleash human potential by not wasting our time with the things that AI can help us with.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think that's a beautiful way of putting it. Unleash human potential, right? Like completely flip the script on its head, which I feel like might be one of your great skills. Having
Oh,
heard you do that a few times in this interview already, the what we're seeing at Josef, so we're working with a number of compliance teams and legal teams, take away like that low level work, right? So 20 to 30% of a SME's day is spent answering repetitive questions in Fortune 500 companies. Take that away, and what do, right? You get time and space to think about the things that we were trained to think about,
yeah.
to like look at what's ahead, scan the horizon, or even better, move to that second or third order value from automation and AI, which is, okay, well, what's the data telling us? We had 3 questions last week about bullying from the HR team.
Yeah.
Let's go and run a training, or let's go and ask some questions. We had 2 questions about notifiable data breaches from this like engineering pod. Let's go and have a conversation. We can see what's happening in real time instead of waiting for someone to submit a report. And I mean, how many issues go unreported, right? Like to the compliance team, like 90%, like more, like
I mean, who knows? It's
who knows?
terrible. It's
Who
terrible.
knows?
Like I mean, again, the unknown of what we don't get to see or hear about. And look, there are other reasons we won't get to hear or see about them. We can't be trusted, right? People think that there's
Yeah.
going to be retaliation. They think that we're going to be slow to respond. They think that we don't care. And part of that is not any of the. That's not the truth. We have all the intentions, to care, to respond quickly, but we can't operationalize those best intentions. We just can't because of capacity, resources, name your excuse, but we can't do it right now because you become a victim of your own success. If you're really successful in a role like mine, it will get worse before it gets better. People will talk to you. People will tell you what's under the carpet. They'll give you the clues. They'll tell you how many trees have fallen down in a storm, right? You'll understand that. But if you aren't equipped to deal with that,
Yeah.
because the promise isn't speak up, the promise is we'll do something when you do. And something considered, like to your point about time to think, right? Not just reactive, but really strategic. I'd like to say back to the Waze example and that dangerous intersection. It's not just so drivers can pause, slow down, be aware. That's good. That's instant decision making for the driver. It's also for the local authority to think, well, why is it a dangerous intersection? What do we need to do differently? Is it the speed limit? Is it an obstruction of a stop sign? Whatever it is, we can cure the issue and get everybody moving faster. So yeah, this data informed decision making for everyone. I mean, it's very exciting that we'll be able to, I'm going to say that word again, operationalize our best intentions and not just shrug because we couldn't.
Yeah. Yeah, fascinating. I've heard that from a lot of compliance people as well, that idea of lifting up the carpet. I remember one compliance officer, I think at like an aged care provider, said to me, at one point I learned to stop lifting up the rocks to find out what was underneath them. But if you're operating with, yesterday's tools, you can't deal with that extra capacity, right? What do you do with that when you
Yeah.
find all these extra issues?
I have radical empathy for that position, and I
Right.
understand where it comes from a human side. And also, yes, and how terrible if we're designing
Yeah.
programs, right, to
But
save
you don't
ourselves
know.
what we need to see. Can
Yeah.
you imagine if the local authority came up and said, we really don't want to know because we can't handle all the hazards on the road. So you're on your own, folks. Happy
Yep.
driving.
Yep.
Right. And that's, I know that's not what that person was trying to say. It's just vulnerable. It's like, it's honesty
Yeah,
about the way we
they
design
were
things.
being radically honest. That's
Yeah.
right.
And another thing we get stuck on, compliance, maybe legal as well, as we we become a cost center. We
Mm-hmm.
become a cost center. That's the image of us. And we're always asking for more resources. Even with the AI, it's like, it's got to cost something, right? But actually, we get to be more resourceful, right? This is the beauty of this. Like, I also know, this is why I hang around people like you, because there might be something I haven't found yet out there on the market, but I can just ask you, hey, this thing's happening. You guys don't just sit in your offices and come up with genius on your own. You interact with us and you say, what's the pain point? And we say, this is the pain point. And it used to be, oh yeah, we'll put that on our roadmap. Now it's 3 months later. You've done it, right?
Yeah.
It's amazing. When I say resourceful, my resources are not limited to the dollars in my budget. My resources are limited to my community, people like you. And this is why I love my work. We get to solve for the industry. Remember what I said at the beginning? When I was a kid, I was looking at planes falling down in war. I wasn't looking at one plane. I was like, oh, how does this happen in industries? Oh, how does this happen in the world? So
Wow.
dare I say we're at the edge of possibility, unleashing human potential for world-changing stuff. It's kind of cool. Kind of cool.
It's so funny you say that. I flew out of Newark to go to Clock last week, and
they're not operationalizing their best intentions right now. I've heard this.
they're not, right? And there's all these systemic issues. It was like where the copper wires go, and I like went very deep. And then I saw on like Instagram or something someone posting this very sweet and heartfelt video. They were trapped somewhere trying to fly into Newark, and they're like, "Oh, everyone's being so sweet." It's when everything's completely out of your control. What else can we do but like turn to each other and be good people? And my immediate thought was, this is completely within our control. Like, like these are decisions that people made that we didn't have to make. And it's so funny that so many people look at these big systems and structures and just think that's the way it is. Whereas people like you just want to get in there and
gosh, I don't mean to interrupt you. I'm just understanding you. That's such an interesting point you make, because we're all like mush at the kindness of people in adversity.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like that. Please contribute to a GoFundMe, but we don't talk about the reason that we need the GoFundMe. Like, that's great. I'm really glad that we're seeing the best of humanity in adversity. Look out for the helpers and all that. But
For sure.
But back to my decisions to go for government and big brands, somebody has the power en masse to fix the root cause. Again, dare I say, compliance pitches itself as a root cause analysis function, right? That's systematically, we're trying to eliminate the risk or mitigate the risk at source. So you're right. I mean, it's beautiful. I love that analogy, because you're right that somebody was talking about how people improved what they could. They controlled what they could. They made their experience better themselves. They self-helped on experience. This brings me to my nice segue to my other favorite topic, which I know is one of yours too, and also one of Zach Posner's, the head of the legal tech fund. The customer experience is everything, right? And so that should be the driver, not for them to self-help and pass around some mints while they're at Newark, but for them to actually have the experience they wanted to get. I mean, literally get where they wanted to go, right? Because probably some of them did not get where they wanted to go, and they just had to put up with it. But yeah, I agree. I'm going on, but absolutely, we have an opportunity. Even those kind people, when they're helping each other in the terminal, they probably have some good ideas about what could be done. And I think we're at a moment in time where there's no excuses for the technology not to bridge the gap between intention and operational reality. I think this is my bet.
I love it. I'm gonna double down on that bet. I think that's right. Do you have time for one final quick question?
Do it.
I like to finish with this one with everyone. What's one critical question about AI or compliance that we should be asking, but we're not?
Well, don't know who isn't asking this question. Somebody probably is. But gosh, one question. Let me see. Yeah, let me say this, because this is a theme. I've just touched on it. Are we solving for the customer experience?
Great.
Right? I know some people are asking this question, but if we don't, I, as a consumer of your products, might get to the point where I can onboard your product but I'll never actually implement it or use it. Isn't that
Yep.
terrible? Like, we'll get the funding, but the implementation, if it's just too hard,
Yeah.
it needs to be sticky. It needs to be user friendly. It needs to be something that I wouldn't live without. I mean, I know the way to my daughter's school, but I put Waze on every single day, right? Because it gives me other information that I would not live without. Google's the same. I can call you, but no, I'm going to use Google Suite to communicate with you because it's my favorite thing and I'm going to use it. So we need the user experience to be, again, to coin Zach Posner, gorgeous, right? He says gorgeous, spectacular. And it needs to be, all the things we learned about human behavior when it comes to social media, the stickiness. I know it was for ad revenue. We need to take that knowledge and that's clever, that behavioral science.
Mm-hmm.
I think of Professor B.J. Fogg at Stanford and Tiny Habits, right? And take that science and put it into the legal tech and the consumer tech, so that you've got to prove to us that it's something we can't live without.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense. So not just a gorgeous interface, but something that is so easy and so simple and so useful that I will not go a day without opening it, because I don't want to open another app in theory.
No, we do not.
But
We do
some
not.
companies are making me open their app every day because it's so darn useful and easy to
Mm-hmm.
use. So that's kind of the question I would ask myself is, are we solving for that? Because one thing we don't like as consumers is being bombarded by vendors with more tech, unless it's going to solve one of these problems we talked about.
Yeah, I think that's very insightful. It's very insightful on so many levels. It's like, as you were speaking, I was thinking stickiness for good.
Yeah.
Like, let's take all of those ad revenue tactics and use
And
them.
one comment, if I may,
Yeah,
about
please.
Professor BJ Fogg. So he did help the people that created Instagram. Like, those were his students, right? They left class and went and built things like Instagram. But he also understood that the stickiness had to be used for good. And he created something called the Peace Innovation Institute at Stanford, because he knew that that same simple human science should be used for good. So yeah, stickiness for good is a thing. And we should all be leaning into that.
Well, let's do that. I love that. What a note to finish on. You've got somewhere to be.
I
It's
do.
always such a pleasure to speak to you. Thank you so much for your time. And yeah, can't wait to see what you do at DocuSign.
Thank you.
Thank you.